Razor, how's it going this week?
Oh, it's been a wonderful week. It really started off well on Sunday. I lived in Italy for a year, so Arcand, we can speak Italian with each other if you choose to at some point.
Can you give us a little?
How do you say the Bruins choke like dogs in Italian? How do you say that?
Yeah, that's not that one. I'd have to go back to the dictionary. It's been a little while to gather
good.
Those ones.
We can get to the bottom of that.
They certainly blew it.
So let me point out, Razor, and you said this when we talked to you last week. You said, I don't, and I'm paraphrasing here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you said something to the effect of, I don't look back at Game 7, not with regrets, but I don't look back at Game 7 with the same regrets I had as Game 5 in 2004 when you guys had a lead against Montreal and lost. You said that going into Game 5, Bruins and Panthers. I guess, where did this series get away from Boston, and was it the Game 5 you tried to warn us about?
No, my regret in this one would be Game 6 in a big way. You scored 5 goals on the road. You had a lead 5-4 with 9 minutes left, scoring a shorthanded goal, and that is where the big regret for me would lie. They played pretty good in Game 5 at home. They had 47 shots on goal. They had a power play with 3 minutes left, so you could have a little regret there that you didn't close it out. Bert or Marchand with the breakaway in the last seconds, but they did play well that game. I thought they brought it, and they just weren't able to pull it out. Game 6 is the one where listen, they had a lead with 59 seconds left in Game 7. I mean, there's a lot of regret in that too.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, Razor, but Kevin Weeks had a tweet yesterday where he essentially said that Linus Ullmark was dealing with an injury that compromised his mobility in Games 1 through 6. So why was he out there? Like, if it's compromising his mobility, if it's not just a pain tolerance issue, why did he continue to play every single game in the series?
Yeah, and I think with that one, it's why are we taking that tweet at 1,000,000% accuracy? Weeks, he's the best. He's an insider. I'm not an insider. He is. He gets a lot of information thrown his way, but I never saw an injury compromising Linus Ullmark. He was doing split save, glove saves in Games 3 and 4 when they won both games, and he gave up 4 goals on 74 shots. So when I hear compromising movement and debilitating injury, I hear something that doesn't line up. So there's something fishy between all of those things, if that was the case, because they did go to Swayman. So why wouldn't they have gone to Swayman earlier if he was injured the way that tweet was written? So I'm not convinced that is 100% accurate at this point.
Razor, what'd you think of Jim Montgomery dumping all that on goalie Bob?
It was interesting. I didn't get the whole thing. I didn't see the context of it, and I've never seen someone dump it all on him. So I'm not really sure. Again, I'm not sure the context, and I'm not sure if he truly meant to dump it all on him, or if it was we as an organization made a decision altogether with goalie Bob's information. I'm not. It's surprising. I've never heard that before. So at the end of the day, I think that the head coach is the head coach, and even if a goalie coach of Bob's stature, a guy who is so well respected in the league, makes a decision or makes wants to use somebody, at the end of the day, it always ends up coming down to the head coach and what he feels.
Andrew Raycroft joining us on the Harbor One hotline here on Jones and Mego with Arcand. Assuming that it's done with Bergeron and Krejci, and if you're hearing anything differently, Razor, you can let us know. But assuming it's done with those two.
Not an insider, Jones. He just told you.
It's true. Maybe we'll get Kevin Weeks on next. But when it comes to this core, Bergeron, Krejci, Chara's gone, Tuukka's gone. I guess Marchand will still be a part of it, we think. What's the legacy of this core?
Well, unfortunately, I think the losses, the hurtful losses, are what come to mind first, whether it's 13, whether it's 19, whether it's this one. and it's crazy to think that those two were in the Stanley Cup Finals, but this one hurts way more. This one's I feel like this is gonna linger and do them a little more damage than those other ones. It just hurts, and I think people are hurt, and people were really invested in this, and when you're that invested, it goes that way in the 3-1 lead. People get pretty frustrated. So at this point, the legacy of them as a group when it comes to winning the big one is not ideal, but I think they will also we will all gain a lot of perspective for how great of players they are as they go away, and as we get away from them. What they have been able to do for 12 years is extremely highly respected by all hockey players.
So you bring up great players, and Pastrnak finished the series with 5 points but no assists. Are you concerned at all about his game being one-dimensional, or I don't know, if it hitting the ceiling, if there's something lacking in his game, particularly when they get into the playoffs?
No, not at all. He should have had the game-winning goals in both Game 6 and Game 7. He scored 3 goals in Game 6 and 7. He was that goal in Game 7. It was a bad rebound from Bobrovsky, but there's 3 people in the world that can hit it one time full speed over the shoulder, bar down like he did. That was impressive. And I have no issues with David Pastrnak, what he did in the series. His ability to score goals in big third period moments for this team is exactly what was expected out of him, what everybody wants out of him, and I thought he more than delivered in this series, especially at the end, 6 and 7.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. Razor, when we were talking to you around the trade deadline, you were very adamant about this team trading draft picks, really doing whatever they had to do to make the team better going into this for a big push at the end. Have you ever been on a team that did that? And if so, if they came up short, what do you do next? Like, all the chips are pushed in, you came up short, where do you go from here?
Well, with the NHL, the draft and where they're drafting is, and this was my point, I think, the whole time, it's pretty irrelevant. You're not going to get a guy who's going to help your lineup next year or the year after at pick 25 in the NHL draft. It's not the NFL draft where you're going over a 6th-round pick who's actually possibly going to be in your lineup next year. The NHL draft is 18-year-old kids that are far from fully grown, that you don't even know what they're going to be. It's much more of a crapshoot than the NFL draft. So I don't see how these draft picks or the lack thereof at this point is even a talking point or an issue.
How about not having them in season for next year if you want to make a trade next year? Like, you won't have the chips to do that in future years.
That's fair. That's reasonable. I think that it was worth going for it with the historic team that they had now. I don't think that can be. That's the one that, sure, hindsight is easy, but at the time, you're not thinking that this was going to happen. So I guess if you're looking at the deadline next year and they're in the same position, you might not. You're then going for 2026 and 27 first-round picks to get rid of. There's been a lot of talk about the farm and everything else. They have a team in Providence that was first in their division that's playing in the AHL Calder Cup playoffs right now. They were the best team in their division too, which means they have some pretty good young players, and you only need a couple of them. There's not a lot of turnover in the NHL. There's not a lot of roster spots. It's a really difficult league to make and play in, and these draft picks are really hard to hit on.
Razor, is your phone blowing up with texts from Canada apologizing to Hockey Jones and saying how right I was? Is that happening or no?
No, unfortunately, I don't think they respect your take quite as much as you want them to yet.
It's unfortunate. They'll see the light someday, Razor. They're going to see the light someday. I do have faith that all of Canada will apologize to Hockey Jones, but it's okay. Well, Razor, we appreciate you taking the time all season long and during this playoff run. We're sorry it ended prematurely, but we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, enjoy the non-hockey. Hopefully, the Celtics can figure it out for everybody's sake.
They're looking real good.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not going to hold our breath on that one. But Razor, thank you very much.
For them. All right, bye.